Hey everyone, Noir here. Let's get into today's Reddit story.
My name is Vanessa. I am 32 years old, and last month at my brother's wedding, my mother humiliated me in front of 180 guests. The open bar was flowing, a string quartet was playing Can't Help Falling in Love, and during the wedding toasts she grabbed the microphone and told everyone that the only thing I had ever been good at was disappointing people. She laughed after saying it, and a lot of the guests laughed too. I did not cry, and I did not walk out. I stayed right where I was at table 11, the one farthest from the head table, sitting with the aunt everyone ignored and two of my brother's co-workers who barely knew him. While everyone else moved on, I made one quiet decision that would change everything. But before I tell you what happened after that, I need to go back, because this story did not begin at a wedding. It really started 23 years earlier in a hospital room in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was 11 years old when my father looked me in the eye and told me I was the one he believed in. We were the Calloway family, owners of Calloway Custom Woodworks, a cabinet and millwork business my grandfather had started in 1971 with nothing more than a truck and a table saw. By the time I was born, my father, Gene Calloway, was running the company. We were not wealthy, but we lived comfortably. We had a 4-bedroom ranch house near Kingston Pike, went to church every Sunday, and kept a freezer full of venison in the garage. My mother, Diane, was beautiful enough that people naturally assumed she was kind. She was not exactly mean, but she definitely chose who deserved her affection. The love she showed my younger brother, Tyler, was something I rarely received. It was never obvious enough for other people to notice. There were no insults or dramatic fights back then. It was simply clear that her warmth was always meant for someone else. Tyler was 4 years younger than me, and once he learned to throw a football, the whole family revolved around him. Dad coached his team, and Mum filled scrapbook after scrapbook with his accomplishments. I focused on school instead. I earned good grades and hoped somebody would notice. Nobody did. When I was 15, my father had his first heart attack. He recovered, but the business had already been struggling, and things only became harder afterward. By the time I was 17 and applying to college, our finances were, as my father liked to say, complicated. I earned a partial scholarship to the University of Tennessee, but I still needed about $14,000 a year. One October evening, my father sat me down at the kitchen table. He folded his hands the way he always did before saying something serious. "Vanessa Bird," he said, using the nickname he had always called me. "I need you to understand that this comes from love." He explained they could not afford the rest of my tuition. Maybe things would improve in a year or two. Maybe I could start at community college and transfer later. I looked over at my mother, but she just stared down at her coffee mug. What I did not know then, and would not discover until 15 years later, was that only 3 weeks earlier, my parents had co-signed a $47,000 loan for Tyler's travel baseball program. It paid for private coaches, tournament fees, and even a custom batting cage in our backyard. So I enrolled at Pellissippi State, telling myself it was only temporary. It was not. The day after I turned 19, I moved to Nashville with $1,400, a plastic bin full of clothes, and a job answering phones for a property management company. I earned $13.50 an hour scheduling maintenance calls. My apartment was a converted garage in East Nashville that smelled like motor oil and had a single window facing a brick wall. At first, I called home twice a week, then it became once a week, and eventually I stopped calling altogether. Every conversation ended the same way. My mother questioned my future, and my father talked about Tyler's latest baseball success. Instead of giving up, I took every free course I could find. I studied property management, bookkeeping, and real estate law through YouTube videos posted by a lawyer in Phoenix. I earned my property manager's license at 21. By 23, I was managing 40 residential units for a small company called Meridian South Properties. The owner, Gloria Tran, was the first person in years who truly believed in me. After I solved a lease dispute on my own, she looked at me and said, "You are not just organized. You think like an owner. You should become one." So I did. At 26, I invested all $22,000 I had saved and started Lakeview Property Group Limited Liability Company. It was just me, my laptop, and a rented desk in a co-working office on Charlotte Avenue. I kept my name off everything. No LinkedIn profile, no press releases, and every contract went through my company and my attorney, Victoria Harper. I had a good reason for staying invisible. I knew my family. If they found out I was building something successful, they would either take credit for it or find a way to tear it down. I had watched them do that to my father for years, and I was not going to let them do it to me. By the time I turned 30, Lakeview managed 342 residential units, along with 6 commercial properties across Middle Tennessee. The company was bringing in more than $2,100,000 a year. I had 8 employees, a real office, and a condo in the Gulch with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Cumberland River. Everything I owned, I had earned myself. I never asked anyone for help. The part that still amazes me happened 2 years ago. Tyler never made it past single-A baseball. After that, he bounced between 3 sales jobs before getting engaged to a woman named Brittany from Murfreesboro. One day, he reached out looking for a property manager for a rental owned by his fiancée's parents. They wanted someone reliable in Nashville. He had no idea he was talking about my company. Lakeview's website only listed a general email address and my attorney, Victoria, as the managing agent. I accepted the account without saying a word. It was a 4-unit building in Germantown, and we handled everything: leasing, maintenance, rent collection, all of it. Brittany's parents, the Whitfields, loved our work. They were so happy that they referred 3 more clients to us. At Easter, Tyler told my mother that a company called Lakeview was doing an amazing job managing the Whitfields' property. According to my Aunt Melanie, my father's sister, Mom smiled and said, "See, Tyler has always been good at finding the right people." Melanie kept me updated on things like that. As she liked to say, she believed I deserved to know the truth. The morning before the wedding, she called me. "Vanessa, I need to warn you," she said. "Your mother has been telling people you're struggling. She's been saying you had some kind of breakdown after you and Marcus split up. Or Marcus was a man I dated briefly 5 years earlier. Apparently, my mother had been using that breakup as proof that my life had fallen apart ever since." I thanked Melanie and told her not to worry. I still went to the wedding because Tyler asked me to come. Deep down, some part of me still believed that families could surprise you. They did. Just not the way I hoped. The wedding was held in September at the Noel Hotel Ballroom in downtown Nashville. Every table was covered with white roses and eucalyptus. It was the kind of wedding that cost more than I had paid in rent during my first year on my own. I wore a simple emerald green dress that I had bought for myself, along with my grandmother Calloway's pearl bracelet. I looked like exactly what I was, a woman who had built a successful life. During cocktail hour, my mother stopped me near the bar. She looked me over from head to toe before saying, "You look tired, sweetheart. Are you getting enough sleep?" I smiled and told her I was doing great. Tyler gave me a hug, and I honestly think he meant it. My brother was never a cruel person. He had just spent his whole life growing toward the only approval he had ever known. Dinner went smoothly, and then the speeches began. Brittany's father spoke first, followed by her maid of honor. Then my mother stood up. She already had the microphone before anyone offered it. That told me everything. She spent several minutes talking about Tyler, his charm, his determination, and how he had overcome disappointment after failing to make the major leagues and starting a career in insurance sales. She made it sound like the greatest comeback story ever told. Then she turned toward me. "My daughter Vanessa is here tonight," she said, and every head in the room turned. "Vanessa has always done things her own way." She smiled. No degree, no real plan. Just figuring life out as she goes. 34 years old and still trying to find herself. She laughed. A few guests laughed too, although it sounded more uncomfortable than amused. I stayed perfectly still. I counted to 5. Then I stood up, walked over to the microphone stand beside the dance floor, picked it up, and faced the room. The ballroom went silent. "I'd like to say something," I said. My voice never shook. "First, congratulations, Tyler. I love you, and I truly mean that." I looked at him. He looked terrified. Then I turned back to everyone else. "My mother just said I'm still trying to find myself, so let me tell you where I found myself." Finally, I looked at her. "Mum, the property management company taking care of the Whitfields building in Germantown, the one Tyler has been praising for the last 8 months, is my company. I built it. I own it. It manages more than 340 units and brings in over $2 million a year." Not a single person made a sound. "I never went to the University of Tennessee because you told me there wasn't enough money. There was money. You spent it on batting cages." I kept my voice calm. "I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it because I'm tired of being treated like the family disappointment when my life tells a very different story." I set the microphone down, picked up my clutch, and walked toward the exit, my heels echoing across the ballroom floor. The only sound in the ballroom was my heels clicking across the marble floor as I walked out. I pulled over on 2nd Avenue and sat in my car for a long time. I was not crying. I was just breathing, the way you do after finally saying something you have kept inside for years. 2 days after the wedding, my phone rang. It was Aunt Melanie. "Vanessa, your mother is telling everyone you had a breakdown," she said. "She's saying the pressure from your little business got to you, and that's why you caused a scene." That did not surprise me. Then Melanie told me something that did. "There's something I've needed to tell you for 10 years. Your grandmother, your daddy's mama, left something for you before she died. Your mother intercepted the letter from the estate attorney." I felt sick. My grandmother, Eleanor Brooks, passed away when I was 22. I had always been told everything was divided equally between her children, so I never questioned it. Melanie explained that Grandma had actually left me $35,000 for my education or professional development. My mother signed for the letter, told the attorney I had declined the inheritance, and redirected the money into a joint family account she controlled. That same afternoon, I called Victoria Harper. 3 weeks later, after one letter from her law firm, I recovered $31,200, including part of the interest. The attorney who handled my grandmother's estate had kept detailed records, and my mother had not covered her tracks as well as she thought. I never sued her. Instead, I donated the entire $31,200 to the University of Tennessee's first-generation student scholarship fund in Eleanor Brooks's name. About 6 weeks after the wedding, Tyler called me. By then, he knew the truth about Lakeview and everything else. For a long time, neither of us said much. Finally, he spoke. "Vanessa, I didn't know." "I know you didn't," I replied. "I had no idea what she was doing." "I know." We stayed on the phone for 2 hours. It was the most honest conversation we had ever shared. He cried. I almost did. Our relationship is still a work in progress. It's fragile, but for the first time, it's honest. My mother has never contacted me directly. According to Tyler, she's telling people I planned the whole thing at the wedding just to embarrass her. Maybe speaking up there was harsh. Maybe. I have thought about it many times, but I also know this. For 23 years, I lived with the story my mother told everyone about who I was. I spent those same 23 years trying to prove her wrong quietly, with hard work, patience, and success. None of it changed anything. Sometimes the truth has to be spoken out loud. Today, Lakeview Property Group has 14 employees. We recently signed the largest contract in company history to manage a new mixed-use development in the nation's neighborhood. I also see a therapist, Dr. Monica Reynolds. Once she told me, Grieving a parent who is still alive is one of the loneliest kinds of grief. She was right. I keep a picture of my grandmother Eleanor on my desk. In the photo, she's holding her hands together the same way my father always did. Whenever I can, I visit her grave with yellow roses because they were her favorite. I always tell her the same thing. I did it, Grandma. I kept going. I'm not angry with my family. I want to make that clear. Anger is heavy, and I spent too many years carrying other people's burdens. I finally put them down. What I have now is clarity. I know who I am, what I've built, and what I deserve. I also know who belongs in my life and who needs to be loved from a distance. Boundaries are not punishment. They are self-respect. If your family ever made you feel small or treated you like you did not matter, remember this. You were never a side character in your own life. You were always the whole story. They just refused to see it.